Okay, so we're back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be talking about productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people struggle with this.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like you're constantly busy
Yeah.
doing a million things. But at the end of the day, you look back and you're like,
Right.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
What did I actually accomplish?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we're going to dig into today, right?
All
Like
right.
how to be more productive as opposed to just being busy.
It's such a
Yeah.
common trap to fall into, and there are
Especially like in today's world, right?
absolutely
Where we're just constantly bombarded with things,
right.
to do and, different commitments and requests and all this stuff.
Absolutely, and I think one of the first things that we kind of have to get clear on is understanding what productivity actually is.
Hmm.
And it's not just about doing more things or being busy. It's about being effective with our time and achieving meaningful results.
It's interesting because I feel like sometimes.
You know, I've almost bragged about being busy.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm so busy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost like this
It's a
weird,
badge of honor almost.
yeah, like this is badge of honor. But I
Mhm.
think there's been like a shift lately.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
people are starting to realize that
Holy.
busy doesn't necessarily equal productive.
It doesn't at all. And in fact, it can be really detrimental,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
our well-being
Right.
and to actually achieving our goals.
Yeah, and the notes you sent over really emphasized that it
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about focusing on being productive instead of just being busy.
Right. And I think that's a really simple but profound shift
Yeah.
in perspective because it's not about just filling our days with tasks.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional with our time
Hmm.
and making sure that the things that we're doing are actually aligned
Right.
with our goals and values.
Because how do we actually do that then?
Right. That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is to prioritize.
Mhm. And that means
It can be hard.
it can be so hard because everything feels important.
Right.
Everything feels urgent.
Especially when you have people asking you to do things.
Absolutely.
It's like, well, I want to help this person. I want to do that.
Right.
But yeah, prioritization, I think, is a huge one.
It's huge. And I think one of the things that can help with that is to really understand what your goals are.
Right.
What are the things that you're actually working towards? Because
Yeah.
if you don't know what your goals are,
Right.
then it's really hard to prioritize.
Right. You're just
You
kind of
wanna-
like reacting to whatever.
Yeah, just reacting to whatever comes up.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're busy but not productive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you know what your goals are, then you can start to look at your tasks and say, okay,
Right,
which of these tasks are actually going to move me closer
right,
to my goals and which tasks are just busy work or distractions?
right.
And then you can start to prioritize the tasks that are going to actually make a difference. Okay, so once we've kind of got our priorities figured out,
Right.
what are some other things that we can do to really boost our productivity?
Yeah. Well, once you've got your priorities figured out,
Right.
I think it's really important to optimize your workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many different tools and techniques
Yeah.
that you can use for this, but it's really about figuring out what works best for you.
Right.
Some people love to use to-do lists.
Yeah.
Some people love to use project management software. There are all sorts of different things that you can do.
Right.
But the key is to find something that helps you to stay organized
Right.
and to track your progress.
Okay, so we've got
Yeah.
prioritizing, we've got optimizing our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
Any other tips or strategies that you found to be really helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think another really important one is learning to say no.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It is so hard. And I
Yeah.
think especially for people who are, high achievers or people pleasers, it can be really difficult to say no.
Yeah, because you want to help everyone do everything.
You want to help you want to do everything.
Right.
But the reality is that we can't do everything.
Right.
And when we try to do everything, we end up spreading ourselves too thin
Yeah.
and we don't do anything really well.
Right.
So learning to say no is really about protecting our time and energy
Mm-hmm.
so that we can focus on the things that are truly important to us.
I read somewhere that if you're not saying no to something, you're saying yes to something else.
Because
That
yes,
you're always saying yes to something.
right, you're always making a choice,
Uh-huh.
even if you're not consciously making that choice,
And so often we're saying yes to things that
that aren't serving us,
Yeah.
that aren't aligned with our goals, that aren't bringing us joy.
Right.
And so it's really important to be mindful of those choices that we're making.
Okay, so we talked about prioritizing, we talked about workflows,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about saying no. Is there anything else that comes to mind in terms of
Yeah.
boosting productivity?
I think another really important piece is reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that often gets overlooked,
Yeah.
but it's so crucial because it allows us to step back
Yeah.
and to assess what's working and what's not working.
Right.
So, taking some time each week to just reflect on your progress,
Yeah.
to identify any bottlenecks in your workflow,
Mm.
to think about what you could do differently. I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important.
It's almost like a productivity checkup.
It is. It's like a productivity checkup. And it doesn't have to be a big formal thing.
Right.
You can just take 10 minutes at the end of the week to just jot down some notes,
Yeah.
to think about how things are going.
Awesome. All right, so we've covered a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we kind of leave our listener
Yeah.
with something actionable, something they can actually do.
Right.
Today to start implementing these ideas.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is like the number one thing that someone could do today to become more productive?
Okay, so if I had to pick one thing, I would say identify your biggest time waster.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them, those tasks or habits that just suck up our time, but don't actually move us forward.
Totally.
So if you can identify what that is for you,
Right.
and then brainstorm some ways to eliminate it, or to delegate it, or to automate it,
Right.
Whatever you can do to get that off of your plate,
Yeah.
I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Okay, I love that. So as you're listening to this right now, think about what is your biggest time waster? What is the thing that is just like draining your energy and not actually helping you to achieve your goals?
Right. And I think once you identify that, it can be really empowering.
Totally.
Because then you can start to take control of your time and start to focus on the things that are truly important.
I love it. And so as you're thinking about that, I also want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
What would it look like to achieve your most important goals, but also feel less stressed and overwhelmed?
Right.
Like, is that even possible?
I think it is.
I think it is too. And I think this idea of being productive instead of just busy is a huge part of that.
A huge part of it.
So I hope that this deep dive has given you some, ideas and inspiration to start making some changes in your own life.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was fun. And we'll catch you next time on the deep dive.
Awesome.
All right.
Bye.